Mr. Krishnamurthy Ramsubramanian, Professor at the Indian Institute of Technology, Mumbai. Mr. S. Lakshman Shanmugam, Under Secretary of the International Division, Ministry of Communication and Multimedia, Malaysia. Dr. Sachidanand Joshi, Member Secretary of the Indira Gandhi National Centre for the Arts. Mr. Vikram Chana, Vice President, Production and Development, Discovery Channel. Mr. Yang Fujing, Director General, China Global Television Network. And speaking together, the last pair, Dr. Chung Han Suk, Executive Producer of EBS Korea, and Ms. Sangeeta Goel, Additional Director General at Doordarshan, India. Please feel free to take photos, to tweet, to post about the session using the hashtag Asia Media Summit. I certainly will be. Record? Absolutely. Please welcome our first speaker, Mr. Krishnamurthy.
Namaste. So let me commence with an anecdote which happened in US almost 16 years back for the first time when I visited US. I was sitting in an exhibition which was supposed to demonstrate a certain phenomenon in electricity and magnetism, and the show was supposed to begin in a couple of minutes. So there was a small kid who was sitting nearby, maybe 3 years old or even less than that. So I patted the kid and then asked, "What is electricity?" So that small little kid answered, "That which we should not touch." So I was touched by this answer, and then I patted further and then asked her to come and sit in front so that I could continue my conversation before the course begins. Okay, we'll stop there. Then the show was over. I came out of the exhibition, and then my friend who took me there went to a coffee corner. I said, "I will not join you." I was just standing there alone. Within a couple of minutes came a couple of policemen to me, and then they said, "Were you in this show?" I said, "Yes." So then he further asked, "Did you touch a small girl?" "Yes," I said. So then he said, "How is she related to you? How can you touch?" Then I immediately said, "It's not even touching, we even lift children and then we hug them and then we take them along with us. What is wrong in touching?" So he was astonished by my reply, and then he said, "How can you touch? I mean, who is not related to you?" So then I said, "I don't find anything wrong in this. So what is wrong with this, you please tell me." Then he said, "We are not supposed to touch others' children." Then I said, "It is a shocking news to me. I come from India where, so we just take our others' children to our home and then we just do things. So it doesn't really matter whether it is X children or Y son, etc." Anyway, so this was a real shock to me because it is a value which is not recognized in some other society, and this value which is not recognized is somewhat shocking to me. So there are distinctions between values, and here let me just talk about certain values. See, the question that one has in one's mind is, why it is subjective Asian at all, and if it is meaningful, in what sense is it meaningful? If it is distinct, how is it distinct, etc. But to cover all these things in 5 to 10 minutes is not something which is definitely possible, and the slides will be anyway available for you to ponder over. I will just quickly rush through a few points which I feel are extremely important to understand, and certain values which are distinctly present here which I do not see to be present as much in other societies. So, a king by name Rantideva is supposed to have nothing for himself, and he himself was under the tree shelter. And then, whatever little that he had, water, etc., was again shared with someone who came and asked for that. And there are a couple of interesting verses which I will not quote here, but then one verse which is much more terse. He says, Natvaham kamaye rajyam nasvargam na punarbhavam kamaye dukkhataptanam praninam arti nashanam. So normally one tries to avoid pain, one tries to avoid a certain circumstance in which one encounters somebody who is suffering pain, but here is a person who asks for providing an opportunity to be in that environment and then share the pain of the others. So now there is a very interesting thing which comes up in this context. If one has empathy, then obviously one has a certain feeling for the pain for others. But then here we have a much more deep philosophical theory as to how this pain can be transmitted from one to the other and so on and so forth. Let me just tell you, there are a couple of instances in which one finds examples where this person is immensely happy by sharing the pains of others. And in fact, ultimately, if one looks into, it is in sharing this pain which is experienced by the other that this person is able to elate himself. So here is an instance where he is completely willing to sacrifice what he has, even that ounce of water which he had for himself with the other. And what makes him do this? That immense happiness that he is able to derive in paining oneself for relieving the pain of the others. So let me just move on further. How is it possible? It is possible because of a certain fundamental philosophy which is prevailing here. And this fundamental philosophy essentially tells you, hi. So this is what is shortly proclaimed, Ishavasyam idam sarvam. So one is able to spread the self, the notion of self, and a certain deep philosophical idea that it is the same self which is present in every individual, every being for that matter. So it is not difficult for anybody to perceive that if one is sort of pained, then one immediately takes a certain recourse to get rid of the pain. And is it ever possible for a person to do this kind of an activity? If one poses this question, then obviously if he is able to spread his self, then care naturally flows. So that is what is essential to understand, and this is something which is deeply ingrained, and it is presented in all works if you see with an open eye. So let me not get into the details, but let me just tell you that it is that veneration for nature is something which is extremely important for a sustainable world today. And by exploiting nature, we have landed up ourselves into a certain situation, an irreversible situation by which we will not be able to recount what damage has been even done. And through scientific means also we try to understand today, we have come to a certain situation, what kind of damage has been done. So this reverence for nature, which you will see in all scriptures starting from Veda to various great poets' work like Kalidasa, is something which is very essential, and this I think is something which is peculiar to this nation and which has spread to other Asian countries as well, as far as I can see. So let me not render these verses, but just one thing. Namo Gnaye Epsumate Nama Indraya Namo Varunaya Namo Varunye Namodbhyaha. So you see a certain water body and see a certain divinity in that. You see the sun and see a certain divinity in this. You see a certain plant and then see the divinity in that, and so on and so forth. It just goes on and on. And this is possible because of a certain philosophical foundation which made them revere that. And in revering, we have a great... Okay. So the bell has rung. So let me just tell you one more interesting thing. These are concluding slides. So there is a certain firm belief in the family collective than individual or state. This is what I see. And this can be manifested in various ways in the families giving input for marriage choices. This is something which is making wonder-struck people all over the world. And family members contributing their earnings into the big family system without thinking of owning for themselves. And respect for elderly members in the family is something. So recently I had been to a certain country in which the boy was doing something and the father enters into the room. That boy was 12 years old. I was in some other country. And then the boy was asked a question by the father, and then that boy says, "You are into my room. How can you ask me now this question?" So this is something which was absolutely shocking to me. And then later the father tells me that this is how things are here. Okay. Anyway, so what I want to say was there are certain things which are distinctly Asian, and questioning a wrong individual, maybe at a later stage I will just tell a certain anecdote. This is final slide. So the Vedic vision of man and nature forming an undivided fabric, which is what we call as Atman, is something which is extremely unique. And this value inculcates several values which need to be explained, and once it is understood, I think it is something which is going to be helpful in very many ways to get rid of various kinds of undesirable things which are happening in this universe. This is something which is really unique, I can tell you. And today this vision seems to be resurfacing in many different ways with different faces. This perhaps is the sole hope for the survival of this endangered planet. The Gia's hypothesis and NASA coming up with this logo called Love Your Mother. So it is something which is inert being. As far as the Western philosophical systems are concerned, the way this modern civilization has progressed, you make a distinction between man and nature is considered to be inert, brute, and stupid, whereas this person can tamper with it the way he likes. So this is something which is inconceivable to these people who were Vedic seers. So this is a value which I would say is extremely important. And finally, I would say media indeed plays a very crucial role in shaping the future, either by trying to project these values or by trying to project certain other things which will highlight certain other values which are human instincts, where we are driven by greed. So you can create a certain advertisement wherein you are fooled, and then on the other hand, you can be really true to yourself and then question whether this is something which is worthwhile doing, and so on and so forth. Because my time is up, I end up here. Thank you very much for the attention.
Our next speaker is Lechuman Shanmugam, Undersecretary, International Division, Ministry of Communication and Multimedia, Malaysia.
Very good afternoon, Steve, the session coordinator, esteemed panelists, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. First and foremost, allow me to express my gratitude to the organizers of this prosperous event for giving me this opportunity to share experience and beautiful stories of ASEAN, particularly Asian values, which will be the topic of our deliberation this session. What I intend to do is I'll just briefly speak on Asian values based on some movies and dramas, and I will narrow down to values portrayed in movies and dramas in Malaysia, and I will conclude. I hope I can keep to the 10 minutes given to me by the coordinator. Ladies and gentlemen, Asian film and drama basically refers to the films and drama produced in the continent of Asia. East Asia film and drama especially continue to thrive because of the globalization of Asia cinema and television. The globalization of Asia cinema and television allow people all over the world to view and experience Asian films and dramas. Hollywood is even making remakes of films from Asia, some of which include Eight Below, The Lake House, The Grudge, and The Dark Water. Furthermore, Asia has been producing films and dramas that are slowly catching the attention of viewers as well as scholars from all around the globe. It is also observed the Asian films vary in content and topic. Asian films contain universal themes such as love, life, revenge, death, and poverty. They also contain slices of Asian culture, and the stamp of each Asian microculture can be found in each respective films. The microculture of Asia are varied and diverse, so diverse that each is of different character and quality. This can be explored in the films made by each country, especially in Korea, Japan, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. When one talks about Asian cinema, one talks about the Asian culture, tradition, and beliefs embedded in the films. As it is, there is no doubt that Asian culture is prominent in Asian cinema. This is why Asian cinema is a great source of understanding Asian culture. Asians incorporate Asian culture into their films by showing viewers the Asian values, culture, tradition, and way of life. The characteristics of Asian cinema vary as well. Generally, strong themes characterize the films made in the continent of Asia. One of these is nationalism, a theme that can be found in almost all Asian films. Nationalism in Asian films is shown by the use of national language in Asian films. This shows the pride Asians have concerning their mother tongue. Moreover, ethnicity is shown in each film by the language used. The films are then enjoyed by foreigners through subtitles. The incorporation of Asian values and traits into their films also characterize Asian cinema. For example, family is extremely important in Asian culture. This is why in the films such as Tokyo Story from Japan, Kabikushi Kabigam from India, audiences are made to realize that family is important and to show affection to the parents while they are still alive is of grave importance. Asians are extremely friendly and helpful, as depicted in the film of Seven Samurai from Japan, where the samurai himself agrees to help the mountain villagers fight their oppressors in exchange of nothing but 3 meals a day. Asians also have a respect for authority. They also have respect for their ancestors and their elderly. These are Asian qualities or values seen depicted in most Asian movies, because of which foreigners are able to know Asians even more. These depictions also prove the nationalism Asians have when it comes to making films. Spirituality is also a value that is characterized in Asian cinema. This is in the case in point in the film Sister Stella from Philippines, where faith and spirituality is shown by the nun. Other Asian films' implicit spirituality include The Road Home from China, Departures and Throne Blood from Japan, Apu Trilogy from India, The Cave of Yellow Dog from Mongolia, Ghani from Bangladesh. Let's now explore the Malaysian cinema and its value depicted from the screen. Malaysia are huge cinema buffs and has such rich history and plenty of unique stories to be told. And we think there are tons of films that tell those stories beautifully. Here are a few to share. First, I would like to share Hang Tuah. This is a 1956 epic traces the rise and fall of legendary warrior Hang Tuah and his band in 15th century. It is a tale of love, betrayal, justice, and friendship, as compelling as it's heartbreaking. Nominated for the Golden Bear at Berlin Film Festival, it was the first Malaysian film shot fully in Eastman color. Next in line is The Big Durian, a 2003 movie. This movie shown at Sundance Film Festival. The Big Durian generated controversy and acclaim. A daring docudrama, it unravels the events of the night of 18th October 1987, when a rifle-toting soldier ran amok in Kuala Lumpur, causing citywide panic. Ambitious in its scope, it gave the producer opportunity to highlight ethnic, religious, and political division in modern Malaysia. Next, we move on to Sepet, a 2004 movie directed by Yasmin Ahmad, named after the Malaysian word for slit eye. It's a film about racial and ethnic tension, though it's uplifting despite that. An ethnic Chinese shop boy and a Malay schoolgirl newly in love are urged to separate because of their different racial and social circumstances. Though stylistically unremarkable, Sepet is a subtle study of pressures society places on individuals. Next, we move on to Puteri Gunung Ledang. The meaning, the Princess of Mountain Ledang, is a romantic fantasy about Hang Tuah's failure to win the hand of a foreign princess for his king, largely because of his own forbidden love. Director Saw Tiong Hin explores the theme of duty, individualism, and loyalty. Gorgeous cinematography and costume design make this period drama a treat for the senses. Flower in the Pocket is equally touching and disheartening. This film is a simple but potent affirmation of the importance of love and companionship. The plot revolves around the antics of two motherless brothers. After their workaholic father forces them to give up their beloved puppy, he must confront the consequences of neglecting them and the importance of caring. There is many Malaysian movies to be shared, and I move on to this movie called The Journey. This is Malaysia's highest grossing film, and The Journey is about the clash between traditional patriarch and his daughter, whose choice of a Caucasian husband offends him. The couple embarks on a road trip to deliver the wedding invitation, albeit reluctantly on the fiancé's part. On the way, they forge a surprising bond that enables them to overcome cultural, social, racial, and linguistic boundaries. Promoting mutual understanding and multiculturalism, this film is an intimate, uplifting celebration of similarities and differences. Lelaki Harapan Dunia, which means man, the hope of the world. This comedy film is set in a village where the villagers came together to help a widower transport a wedding gift he wanted to present to his daughter, which turns out to be an abandoned home he found in the jungle. Weaving in the mentality, superstition, and simplicity of people living in kampong, the film leaves behind a heartwarming and thoughtful taste. The film had its world premiere at the 67th Locarno International Film Festival and 39th Toronto International Film Festival before it was finally released in Malaysian theatres, proving its critical success internationally. Next, we go to a sports film called Ola Bola. Nothing makes us feel more patriotic and nostalgic than this movie. Inspired by real life events, the movie tells the story of how Malaysian football team got into the 1980 Olympics. Of course, their journey was far from easy, with each team member facing their own obstacles, but it shows their perseverance and dedication to make their country proud. The film even won an award at the Taipei Golden Horse Film Festival for Best Original Theme Song. Okay, we still have a few more films to go, but I will quickly run through it. This is another movie called Jagat, and this is a television series called Upin and Ipin. It's very famous among kids in Malaysia. Okay, let me conclude by saying that in the era of global communication, international cultural exchange is increasing gradually. Movie producers are looking for themes around the world which demonstrate the trend of globalization. Asian cinema is rich in values, culture, and tradition. The reason why Asian films are good media in conveying to the world a particular country's voice. The transformation of Asian culture in the context of globalization has drawn much attention, especially after China began opening its door to the world and southern eastern countries joined China. The globalization of cultures suggests multi-layered experience and emerging aesthetic and cultural conscious. I will skip this slide, and let's go to the way forward. Drawing to conclusion, diversity of civilization and basic characteristics of human society is the power to develop human society. As globalization has confined the cultural development in each country around the world cannot be isolated. It should always exchange and reference with other national cultures. This kind of penetration not only promotes the development of national cultures, but also greatly propels the social progress. On that note, Asian films should pay more attention to interface between ancient culture and values and modern civilization. Any tradition, if it will be accepted by the audience today, must be part of the contemporary culture. Let the tradition chat with modern and pay attention to the themes most interesting to the audience. The Asian film industry, under the situation of globalization, should regenerate their culture and values with selective adoption of foreign culture so that traditional Asian culture and values can be publicized throughout the world by intercultural communication. With that, I thank you.
Our next speaker is Dr. Sachindan Joshi, the Member Secretary of the Indira Gandhi National Centre for the Arts. Please welcome Sachin.
When we talk about Asian values, I would focus on the Indian values, and since most of our things normally, match in other countries of Asia, I think there would not be much difference between the Indian values and the Asian values, because most of the culture related to India has flown to various Asian countries, particularly the South Asian countries. Otherwise, even today, Ramayana would not have been performed in Indonesia. And if you go to Cambodia, you see a lot of iconography related to Indian mythology and Brahminical traditions. So that is why I would focus on my presentation related to India, and we'll see whether it also applies to other countries in Asia also. I would take back to Devarshi Narad, who was a saint and who was an intermediator between the gods and the common people, who was an intermediator between the heaven and the earth, and who used to travel and communicate frequently. So in many forms, Devarshi Narad is also being called as the first journalist on this earth. And I would go a little further and call him first editor on this earth, because he not only reported everything, but he edited the information and reported to the benefit of the society. So he was the first editor, and he has written a remarkable text known as Bhakti Sutra of Narad. And that is Bhakti Sutra is related to devotional. He propounded Bhakti Sutra, which is an ancient text in which he deals with value of devotion, defining bhakti, the means of achievement, pure and mixed, devotion, attaining perfection. But it also relates to the value of communication today and the mass media at large. I would not read out the Sanskrit text because an eminent Sanskrit scholar is sitting on the dais and I am not very good at Sanskrit. Still, if he kindly pardons me for my bad pronunciation in Sanskrit, I would try. So in one of the Bhakti Sutras, he said, Sana Kamayana Nirodha Rupatvat. So there is no question of lust in execution of pure devotional service. Be case in it, all material activities are renounced. Another, he says, Duhu Sangha Sarvadhaiva Tyajah. One should give up all kinds of degrading association. It also applies with media. Once you are, either you are in devotion or you are in media, you should also give up all degrading association. That is the primary value which a media person should also raise. Then another very important, and the ladies would kindly take a note, this is an ancient text, so the language may not be very apt, but the essence of this is very important. Stri Dhana Nastik Charitram Shravaniyam. This is the 63rd Bhakti Sutra, which says one should not find entertainment in the news of women, money, and ethicists. Today, what is happening, unfortunately, with relates to media is anything related to women is not taken into the right spirit, and they have been made a part of entertainment. Unfortunately, even the news related to rape is being treated as of intrinsic commercial value. And it is a pathetic situation as far as the media scene is concerned today. Another important verse which he said is, Abhiman Dambhyadikam Tyajam. One should put aside false prides, hypocrisy and other vices. If you are in media, and that is the unfortunate part, the first and foremost thing in media comes is as the ego. People normally say that ego of a media person is very high. You can have ethical values, there is no doubt about that. But why should I have egos with me? Another important which Narad says is Nasti Teshu Jati Vidya Rupa Kul Dhana Kriya Dibeda. This is 72nd. There are distinctions among such pure devotees. There are no distinctions among such pure devotees in terms of social, class, education, bodily beauty, family status, wealth, occupation, and so on. So when a devotee is there, he would not discriminate. Likewise, when a media person is there, the media person should not discriminate. This is an important value which we must understand. And another very important, which is prevailing in most of the television channels these days, Vado Navalambhya. This is 74th. One should not indulge in argumentative debate, which is happening without result. And next one he says is, Bahulyavakashah Tvada Niyatvascha. Such argumentation leads to excessive entanglements and is never decisive. That is what Narada has said, thousands and thousands years back. So these are some of the verses which have been written by Narada as a Bhakti Sutra. Unfortunately, all these things also depict important values for the media professionals. Another example from Indian mythology is related to Mahabharata, where we think that Sanjay, who was the audio-visual correspondent, we'll say television correspondent to King Dhritarashtra and his wife Gandhari, who could not see. So Sanjay narrated the entire Mahabharata war to Dhritarashtra and Gandhari as if he was watching the entire war scene. And he used to depict everything as an audiovisual correspondent. So we also take Sanjay as the first television correspondent of the Indian mythology. If we come to prehistoric period, maybe 5,000 or 10,000 years back, we have ancient cave paintings at Bhimbetka. And I don't know how many of you had a chance to see those ancient cave paintings at Bhimbetka. they are being often seen as something related to anthropological studies. And that is, unfortunately, is the problem of our education system when we compartmentalize things unnecessarily. If you see those paintings from the communication point of view, you would realize it has intrinsic values as far as communication is concerned. They communicate you everything: customs, traditions, rituals, lifestyles, festivals, even the sorrows, everything. And you can always correlate with them that even the prehistoric era, looking at those cave paintings, you can always find out what kind of a value a prehistoric man used to have in those days. Another important inscription was found in district Mandsaur in Madhya Pradesh. It is of, say, 400 AD, nearly 400 AD, if I'm not wrong, 428 AD, which that inscription tells us about the particular cloth woven by a particular person is of high value, high textile value, and artistic. So people have taken it as the first form of advertisement. So that was the first advertisement somebody has put on the rocks, and that is also another important inscription. When we come to medieval period and we have the Bhakti movement, where all the saints of different sects and religions traveling throughout the country spread the message of humanity, harmony, peace, loving God, loving each other, respecting each other. All these values have been spread by those people when there were no newspapers, there were no television channels, there were no correspondence, there was no social media, tweets, Facebooks, etc. But still those messages used to travel with the people like somebody from the Varkari Sampradaya in Maharashtra, or somebody like Baul in West Bengal, or someone like Kirtankar in Odisha. And these are all the traditions which took the messages within the society. Here I would like to show you something which is very interesting. This is the depiction of Dev Narayan, which I am going to say. This is an oral epic of Rajasthan, and Dev Narayan is a deity. People think that he is a reincarnation of Lord Vishnu. So you can just see that. I'm really sorry. So I'll just scan through these, and people who can read, they will read, and people who can enjoy the paintings can enjoy the paintings. And this particular Phad has more than 300 characters in this, and each character has a story, and the storyteller has the capacity to tell each story when he or she performs. It's not performed by ladies, by the way. So I would just skip that, and skip this, and skip this, and skip, I don't know. It's like. So if somebody has to pinpoint some particular piece, that piece comes out, and then this is in fact a multimedia presentation which our institution has created to revive this important tradition of storytellers in Rajasthan. So I am just trying to tell that even when we did not have the sophisticated media, people had their way of communicating the messages. So anyway, I would just briefly summarize, and this is one thing which I would love to show you. And Steve, if you can just hold this, and this is how this entire Phad looks like. This is an entire Phad of Dev Narayan, and this is only one example of thousands and thousands of traditions prevailed in India. So thank you very much, and if I get some time to interact with you, I will be more than happy to do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm still pondering how we'll make our media programs without covering women and money. Okay. Our next speaker, Vikram Chana, is the Vice President, Production and Development with the Discovery Channel. Please welcome Vikram.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Really wonderful to hear the vast spectrum of knowledge on Asian values from the esteemed speakers today, and more to come. I think it sets up what I wanted to share today really nicely. Thank you, Asia Media Summit, for inviting me. It's an honor to be here today, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm here to talk about Asian values as broadcasting themes from the perspective of an international documentary cable and satellite broadcaster, Discovery Channel, and how our incredible experiences in producing shows we define as real-life entertainment help create a new way, a unique space to showcase Asian stories, perspectives, and values using Discovery Channel's visually evocative style that we sometimes internally refer to as Hollywood meets journalism. I would like to identify this unique space or way we help shape via some of our original documentary series as a non-Western international narrative approach in defining key content from this part of the world. I would like to share with you 2 documentary series we are particularly proud of as examples of this. One is very recent, and the other from 2005, which gave us an early opportunity to fine-tune this non-Western international narrative way. How do we describe this further? Well, it's not BBC, it's not CNN, yet it's not Doordarshan or CCTV either. We found an altogether fresh way of communicating an Asian point of view and values that was visually compelling, genuinely universal in appeal, and uniquely discovery. Let's play the first link to give you a taste of that.
Midday, the 9th of August, 1965. The Prime Minister of Singapore is about to announce his country's independence on live television. It ought to be a time of great celebration, but not in Singapore.
For me, it is a moment of anguish because all my life,
Why was independence seen as such a disaster? Why was Singapore so reluctant to assume the mantle of nationhood? The answers lie in the island's unique history. In the first half of the 20th century, it was convulsed by the trauma of a world war and the 2 great political forces of nationalism and communism. Its people, who had come to the island to make money, were drawn into a struggle for the island's future. This propelled Singapore on a journey to independence that no one expected, and few believed it would ever survive.
Thank you. This was 2005, 15 years ago almost. And as you can see, the use of the then Prime Minister Lee's tears set up this epic story in very emotive Asian terms. It was a 3-part series covering the powerful story of a tiny nation that barely fits on a map, Singapore, on the occasion of their 40th anniversary. The show helped frame a post-colonial narrative led directly by the presence of Minister Mentor Lee Kuan Yew. It was produced by a UK company known for their history shows, but led by Discovery's Asia executive producers and other Asian creatives in the team that debated hard to form an alternative narrative on the history of Singapore. More recently, our latest series on the new era in China also speaks to this way of capturing stories in Asia. If you can play the clip.
I can assure you, I would not want to wake up as president of China with 1.4 billion people expecting their lives to be improved. That is very challenging.
人民对美好生活的向往 就是我们的奋斗目标。
The Chinese government have brought about 600 million people out of poverty since the beginning of the reforms from 78.
我们剩下的最后的贫困人口是4000多万，翻过头来，它可能是最难以克服的深度绝对贫困。习近平以人民为中心的发展战略是极其独特的。
It's about engaging people's emotions and moving just beyond the idea of the party that delivers GDP growth.
The China Dream is a unique piece of political vocabulary he's used.
中国梦有2个层面，一个就是作为国家，一个作为个人。
党和政府都会帮助大家。
My name is Danny Forster. I'm a designer and a filmmaker, and I've had an incredible opportunity to travel all over China. And for me, this is a fascinating moment to look at Xi Jinping.
I'm Dr. Jordan Ewan. As an engineer, technologist, and entrepreneur, I'm interested to find out how China is using innovation to solve some of these challenges.
My name is Marianne O'Hotter. I'm an anthropologist. There's a phrase that's often associated with President Xi's policies, and that's that they are people-centred. I want to know what that really means. In this episode, we discover the impact of Xi Jinping's distinctive focus on enabling people. Not just as a collective, but as individuals, with unique challenges and dreams in a fast-changing China.
Thank you. China Time of Xi is also a 3-part series which we recently produced. And its core challenge was to make a film on policy engaging and in a style that appealed to Discovery international audiences while reflecting non-Western international messaging and a fair representation of China's point of view. So we uniquely formatted the series as a dance of opinions between local and foreign experts, case studies with authentic Chinese protagonists, and led by Discovery hosts whom we had groomed on other shows in China over the last many years. This way, we were able to make a film on the dry topic of policy intimate by avoiding the use of traditional voice of God narration, bringing again an emotive Asian quality to this challenging topic, together with a unique perspective in its content. In both these series, now more than a decade apart, along with Discovery's signature visually appealing factual storytelling mix, we have learned to apply a particular set of ingredients to such films so they showcase distinctive narratives with core Asian values. In 2005, when we produced The History of Singapore, we learned how to collaborate with a specially set up history committee to reflect views of different stakeholders, including the government of Singapore. In 2017, October, just before the Party Congress, when we broadcast China Time of Xi, it was a definitive deconstruction of President Xi's vision and China's policy challenges as seen from a Chinese perspective. To make it happen, again, we worked with relevant stakeholders and advisors. It's been a long but eventful journey of discovery to be able to tell stories in a voice that is Asian, but a manner and tone that draws audiences no matter where they come from. Thank you.
With our next speaker, Mr. Yang Fujing, Director General, China Global Television Network.
Thank you, Steve, and good afternoon to everyone. The title of my speech is Asian Values and Media Responsibilities. I have come up with 4 questions. Question number 1, are there Asian values? I think Steve have answered partly to the question, but my answer is yes and no. If people refer to Asian values as some of the common values of East and Southeast Asian countries, the answer is yes. And indeed, the term was meant to describe the shared values of East and Southeast Asia when it was first coined. And in fact, it was first coined by Western scholars. But if you ask whether there are common values representing the whole of Asia, the answer is no. The Asian subcontinent, for example, is a different case. The Middle East is another situation. And we have a program called Asia Today on our CGTN channel. And Steve, you are from Australia. Whether you're happy or not, we include Australia in our coverage on Asia because we believe Australia is part of Asia. And yeah, we think that you're one of us. But indeed, according to the place movement theories, Australia and Asia did belong to one plate or one continent millions of years ago. I guess you have forgotten that. It was a long time ago. But what I mean is, if we talk about Asian values in a narrow sense, indeed, there are Asian values, okay? Mostly values of Confucianism and Buddhism. Asian values, in fact, exist, representing East and Southeast Asian countries mostly. In fact, all cultures and civilizations have their core values, some of which are common and some are different. So different sets of values share many things in common, but there might be different levels of emphasis on these common values. And different value systems have their different and unique features too. So due to globalization and the advent of the age of information, especially the access of the internet and social media, different value systems are increasingly converging, sharing more sameness than before. This is both a blessing and a concern, if not a curse. I have my own theory, which is called a flowing world, meaning everything is flowing in our world today. And it is the flowing that drives our civilizations, our economy, and our values to further develop. People, society, capital, technology are all flowing. And most importantly, information is flowing and at a faster speed. That means ideas are flowing, concepts are flowing, values are flowing. Civilization advances through contacts and exchanges of different civilizations. So, if the flow stops, civilizations become stagnant. So, the flow is important and globalization is necessary. But on the other hand, if all civilizations become the same, there will be less flow or less interaction or clashes in a good sense among civilizations because they're the same. So civilization diversity is very important. Civilization diversity is the source of creation, innovation, and development. Different civilizations can learn from each other because they are different. In the meantime, civilizations should keep different by keeping the good parts of their own civilizations while learning from others and abandoning those values that are not for the benefits of the people. However, learning from others does not mean becoming others, but rather making yourself a better you so that you remain different. It may sound contradictory, but only by being different, you are qualified to exchange for something else different. Keeping a fine balance between convergence and remaining different is the key. Probably Japan is a good example. Japan learned a lot throughout history from Chinese culture, and later on learned a lot from the West, but Japan remained Japanese. So that's my first question. Question number 2, what are some of the common Asian values? Of course, in the narrow sense, okay. First, collectivism. In many Asian cultures, we put much emphasis on collectivism, while in some other cultures, they champion individualism. Emphasis on collectivism only or individualism only are both not right. Sometimes it's even dangerous. Collectivism without caring about individual rights will be against human nature. Individualism without taking collective or common interests into consideration will jeopardize the common good of the people as a whole. again, the key is to find the fine balance between the two. It is also true in terms of international politics and relations. President Trump upholds the banner of America First, practicing protectionism and anti-globalization. How much does President Trump's policies and thinking reflect the value of individualism? And President Xi Jinping advocates the concept of building a community of shared destiny for all mankind. And how much does President Xi's thinking reflect the value of collectivism? Second, rule by virtue. While in Western values, much emphasis is put on rule of law. Asian values emphasize a lot on rule by virtue. In many Asian cultures, we believe in the power of leading by moral examples. Today, however, in Asian countries, rule of law is much more advocated and practiced, while in the meantime, we still believe in the power of virtue. So, can we incorporate rule of law with rule by virtue? That's a big question. I think Asian countries are learning from the West by advocating and upholding rule of law in the meantime, keeping the concept of rule by virtue also. And third, harmonious yet different. In Chinese culture, we believe in harmony without uniformity. So in Chinese is 和而不同. So harmony has been deeply imprinted in the cultural DNA of the Chinese since ancient times. So if you have visited the Forbidden City, the Imperial Palace in Beijing, you may have noticed that the names of the three main halls for the emperors, they all have the Chinese character 和 or harmony in them. The Hall of Supreme Harmony, the Hall of Central Harmony, and the Hall of Preserving Harmony. President Trump toured the Forbidden City during his first official visit to China last year. I'm just wondering whether he took notice of the names of these three halls. And I'm also wondering whether that's the intention of President Xi to show him the Chinese values of harmony and way of thinking. And question number 3, is this the right time to reflect upon Asian values? So the term Asian values has been debated ever since it was created. So during the rise of the Four Little Dragons and during the Asian financial crisis, Asian values were discussed and reflected upon. This year marks the 40th anniversary of China's reform and opening up. This year is also the 10th anniversary of the Asian financial crisis in 2008, where a lot of people cast doubts about Asian values. After 10 years, most Southeast Asian countries have overcome the effects of the financial crisis and are experiencing fast development. Perhaps this is the right time to talk about and re-examine the value of Asian values. What role have Asian values played in the rise of emerging Asian economies? How can Asian countries better incorporate Asian values in their modernization drive? The economic development of China over the last 4 decades shows that the world's most populous country with strong Confucius values can not only succeed in modernizing itself, but also at an amazing speed. What role has Asian values played in China's boom? Does this provide some counter-argument to the argument that Confucianism hinders modernization and does not suit modern economy and society? China's major advantages, including pooling resources to address major problems or undertake major tasks or projects. Does this have something to do with collectivism? How much a role does the spirit of hard working and the values of thriftiness play in China's fast development? China is making great effort in promoting the rule of law. In the meantime, China is also paying a lot of attention to virtues and stressing equally on integrity and the ability of the officials. So how can we strike a balance between rule of law and rule by virtue? How about the doctrine of mean the middle road, in Chinese 中庸. So is it a good or bad thing? Should we define everything as either black or white? Should we define our relations as either friends or foes? Is there a middle road? What about filial piety? The concept is evolving and changing too in China. There are less blind obedience from children to their parents. Young people are becoming more independent and keeping their fate in their own hands. But what about showing love and care to their parents, which is one of the most important elements in filial piety? Should we continue to keep filial piety while making relations between children and parents more democratic and equal? Okay, all right, I have question number 4, but thank you, Steve, for reminding me that. Okay, I won't talk about question number 4. Question number 4 is, in fact, what are the responsibilities for the media in the debate over Asian values? And I just saying this, we have a program called Culture Express, and we also have a program called Asia Today. I mentioned it before. So when I was writing my speech, I came up with the idea that perhaps it's time to talk about Asian values on CGTN. So why not? And I should thank the organizers for choosing the topic for this panel discussion. So let me conclude by quoting the remarks of a renowned Chinese sociologist by the name of Fei Xiaotong. He made the remarks in the 1990s when he was discussing with a Japanese scholar about how different civilizations could or should coexist. And here is what he said in Chinese, okay, first. 各美其美, 美人之美, 美美与共, 天下大同. Now the English version. Every form of beauty has its uniqueness. Precious is to appreciate other forms of beauty with openness. If all beauties coexist with diversity and integrity, the world will be blessed with harmony and unity. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm delighted to be considered part of Asia while pondering the values of collectivism and rule of virtue. All right. Our last presenters are a team. Dr. Chung Hang-suk, executive producer from Korea, and in a moment, when she's finished, we'll hear from Sangeeta Goel. So please welcome Hang-suk, executive producer from EBS Korea.
Okay, my name is Hyun-suk Chung, working for EBS Educational Broadcasting System in Korea. And I'm small like a child, so I wonder whether you can see me here. Okay, so I'm very happy to have a chance to talk about Asian values at Asia Media Summit. Actually, I've been seconded at AIBD 10 years ago to conduct in-country workshops to enhance local contents in Asia. So that was a beautiful experience in my career, which made me continue work for children or Asian family. Maybe that's why I happen to talk about the project here again. How can I go back? Okay. I've been working for media over 30 years. I've been to management side, but in the end, I came back to working in production because I missed it, I loved it, and I thought I should put my hands on children's content again. And I realized the importance of international co-production to value their heart, because in Asia, it's very difficult to have quality content, because even though there are so much people, 2/3 of young population live in Asia. But anyhow, unfortunately, we pay less attention to quality content for our own kids. So, yes, but as you know very well, as a producer or broadcaster, it's very difficult to gather a group of producer or broadcasters from different countries. It's very difficult, especially when it is to make content of public rather than just commercial value. So it almost always requires some financial support or seed money to get such project off the ground. So luckily, I managed to get some Korean government funding, which gave me the means to realize my dream of using multi-country co-production to create locally relevant stories for Asian audience. So as you can see, I mean, in the past or present or even in the future, family is the starting point. We should understand the value of the family. So I felt very crucial to begin building a network of professional media makers across Asia who could help each other to make local content for Asian children, content which would boost their self-esteem and widen their cultural understanding. This is not about Asian chauvinism or cultural isolationism. It is about learning how to respect ourselves and each other, regardless our different social, cultural, economic background. So the title was called Baby on the Way. We did the first series with 6 Asian partners, which was quite successful. And the following year, we had the second season. So it was quite fun to see how other kids work in their own environment without being disturbed. But one of the things I learned through this project was that making authentic local content about children and families requires lots of support from parents. It requires us to talk to adult audience, whether they are parents or not, to help them understand the world of children and appreciate children's perspective. To me, Asian values need a global context. I think of it myself as a Korean woman, an Asian, and a global citizen, which means that I cannot simply stick with my origins. My starting point may be my Asian roots, but I want to know how to communicate well with each other, with other people in other parts of the world. If we are to learn how to live together on Earth, we have to learn to communicate with each other. Isn't it true? And we talk about artificial intelligence or fourth industrial revolution. It's becoming clear that communication is the key 21st century skill. So we make content, why? To communicate with each other. So I believe we and our children need both to know about our own.
Thank you, Dr. Suk. Friends, I'm sure you are overloaded with presentations and you won't like to listen to more of it, I'm sure. But so I'll keep it very brief, very succinct. First of all, permit me to pose a question to all of you. You all here are very, very creative person. I'm sure I find I'm the least creative person. I mean, the kind of experience and knowledge you bring on the table. So what are 3 things which, as a creative person, after having put in your hard work, your labor of love in a production, you require? 3 things you require to be happiest person, happiest creative person. I would say these 3 things are, number 1, audience, number 2, audience, number 3, audience. Well, broader audience, the better it is. Diverse audience, merrier it is. And this is what you get very easy access to when you are part of an international co-production like this, which we did with all these 5 countries. Second thing is you get easy funding opportunities. It could be subsidies also in certain countries. It comes pretty handy. You get access to diverse locations. You get easy access to diverse talent. And I think you can synergize a lot. It helps in exercising your soft power. So it suits, to the policy system or the strategic, relationship between various countries. Then it gives you an opportunity to reflect on the cultural similarities and differences. We talked of the value systems, and so it gives you better understanding. Then you learn from experiences. I had been in this connection, I had gone to Korea, and that was such an eye-opening experience, the kind of technology they use, the kind of synergies between different platforms of technology, media technology they use. Then, last not least, advantage of these kinds of co-productions is that it is quite in sync with the contemporary existence. Who am I? If I look back, reflect upon, I'm born in India, but then I studied in Australia. I got degree from an American university, and I worked with Korea. Forget about so much of international exposure, which I acquired during my stint in different ministries, including health and defense, and now in information and broadcasting. So who am I? Am I just an Indian? No. I'm a global citizen. I'm a proud Indian, but then I aspire to be a global citizen. And I think this, is an opportunity to truly reflect that intersectionality of identity we are living with these days. So international co-productions, they seem to be a good answer, a good proposition for the kind of audience we have these days. Then what are the prerequisites of an international co-production? It's not an easy job. It's pretty challenging. It could be pretty challenging. I, in Doordarshan itself, face day in and day out challenges to bring in, two teams from different divisions on board. Now think of 6 countries coming on board. I would give all the credit to this lady, no doubt about it. But then little bit we also did, we contributed. What you require is mutual understanding and flexibility. You require tolerance for each other. You require timelines to be met, which could be very difficult, very challenging, given the work culture in different countries, and you have to honor the commitments you made. Again, being public broadcaster in Doordarshan, we have to think of balancing public interest, our interest is public broadcaster, as well as meeting the commercial expectations. Finally, I would say that this is a kind of creative partnership where you have to reconcile in the national interest also. I think, what are the challenges you face? Challenges? Negotiating between demands of national specificity and international appeal. So you have to take care of the cultural your country's cultural nuances, your value systems, your beliefs, as well as you have to see that your international audience should also be able to appreciate it. Then a very important question which arises is who exercises creative control? So in our case, since Korea were funder, would they will be exercising the control over the content all the time? Now, this is a question I leave to you. There could be language issues like local idioms, slangs, then last not least could be bringing diverse perspectives on board. And while summing up, Steve, world has gone global and technology is an enabler, great unifier. I think we need to take its full advantage. And then transnational TV. I think it is the new normal for high-end TV and especially the reality drama. So do we have a choice? You talked about values and belief system. Here, if you permit half a second, I will share an experience of mine. I was in Australia, And I saw this an interesting altercation between you and CCTV that had. This was a friend of mine who comes and says, Sangeeta, would you be coming for dinner tonight? I said, what's the occasion, your birthday or your anniversary? She says, I dumped my third husband. Vikram can appreciate, I think he's giggling. Here in India, if you dump your third husband, forget about third husband. I mean, that's unbelievable, unthinkable normally. You dump your first husband, you'll be sulking, you will be doomed. Your family will be doomed. Come on, it's such a taboo here. So it's still, we are shared by common values and belief system, but I think we are different. So let us celebrate this commonality. Let us also celebrate the differences. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Some great closing words and thoughts. I've really enjoyed this. That was a really good example of learning by co-production, and I think what we've done today is similar. We've learned by co-production. We've heard so many points of view on Asian values. And just picking some of those from the presentations as I was listening and thinking through, values include family, nationalism, national language, which is really important, respect, ethics, empathy, collectivism, the role of virtue, harmony without uniformity, giving up degrading associations, not turning the difficulties of women and money and other things into just entertainment, controlling our ego. I think that's a pretty good set of words that help us start to define a set of values for this region, and hopefully values that will reflect in our media and make our media valuable to the people who view and listen to us. Thanks very much for sharing time with us today. Please thank a great panel of speakers.